Hi guys, this is Zach from Watches on You, and today I'm taking a look at the Grand Seiko SBGH255. This is Grand Seiko's 600-meter professional diver, and it is the most professional of their divers, if you know what I mean, as they do have other divers. They have a different model that's only a 200-meter water-resistant watch, and then this is 600, so you get 3 times more water resistance out of this watch. So first off on this watch, I'm going to go over the absolutely massive titanium case, and then I'll go into the dial, movement, and some other aspects about this piece. So the case is 46.9 millimeters, which is absolutely massive. I mean, it's very large for a watch. It kind of goes up against the large size Planet Ocean. It is finished very well though. I mean, Grand Seiko's case finishing at this price point is really second to none. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. All the flat polished surfaces all around. They do a really fantastic job, and the brushing is absolutely perfect, and even on the bracelet. So this case though, and bracelet are grade 5 titanium. And that means that this watch is going to be a decent amount more scratch resistant than stainless steel. Some titaniums, like grade 2, is going to be a lot more. It will scratch a lot more, but grade 5 has much higher scratch resistance than stainless steel, which is a very nice thing to have in a watch, especially a professional diver where you're most likely going to be banging it around a little bit more than you would some other watches. You can even see on this bracelet that they bevel the edges, which I really like, and they polish those edges, so it just looks really nice. It shines very nice, and it's really solid. I mean, this bracelet is absolutely solid. Same with the clasp. The clasp has a cool ratcheting system for micro adjustments and for use as a diver's extension. So what you do is you actually pull the safety forward, and then that unlocks the ratchet, and you can open it up. So what you can actually do is you can leave it like this, and then you can push it in, and then it won't go out. So you can really get it to the perfect fit on your wrist if you actually go the maximum distance and then just push it in until it feels right. So you can really get this to fit your wrist absolutely perfectly, which is a great thing to have in a watch, especially a dive watch where you're most likely going to need to be extending this over a wetsuit or even a dry suit. The one thing I will say, however, about the clasp is that this outer clasp part, the clasp cover, I'll say, is just a fairly thin pressed metal piece. I don't have any really, I'm not really concerned about the durability of it. It just would have been nice if they made it a little bit thicker to maybe better compete with like Rolex around this price point where they have really high quality thick clasps. This one just feels a little bit, I guess, less robust than like a Rolex clasp, but honestly that isn't a huge problem. It just would have been nice if they did that. Another thing I did notice about this watch is that you can see where they put the pins on the bracelet there. They obviously went in kind of through the outside and then put them in. I haven't really seen another watch where they do that. I know no Rolexes show that. So there's just some kind of, I guess, weird engineering things about this. Everything is finished absolutely fantastically, but I think they could have engineered a better way to do the clasp where you wouldn't see the pinholes there that have been then filled with metal and then brushed over. So that's one thing I noticed on this as well. But let's go into the dial and the bezel and the movement. So the dial, as you can see, is a textured dial. It's very visible. You have these large lume plots around the dial, very large hands, and then you have a lumed second hand as well. The lume is great on this. I'll just show you it really quick with my UV light. It is green lume. It might show up a little blue in this, but it looks blue in the video, but in real life it looks green, and it is very bright. Believe me, if I just cover with my hand, you can really see it. And I know it looks very blue in this video, but in real life it does look like the standard green lume color, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm not sure why it's showing up that different, but that's what I'm noticing here. So again, great lume. I mean, all Seikos are known for their lume, even their cheaper models like the SKX777. So you also have a lume pip at 12 o'clock, as all divers do, and this is a ceramic bezel insert, which is great to see. It's a 120 click bezel, extremely smooth. I would compare this to the likes of the Rolex Submariner. This bezel is very nice, locks down perfectly, no wiggle really. It's a really good bezel, very easy to grip. They're these large cutouts in the side of the bezel, so it will be very easy to grip with gloves or anything, which is a great thing to see on a dive watch. So now this is the Grand Seiko Hi-Beat 36,000 beats per minute movement, which is absolutely fantastic, or beats per hour, sorry. This movement is great. I like high beat movements. The second hand is just dead smooth. It's not quite as smooth as like their spring drive because that doesn't have a traditional escapement. That's like a constant flow escapement, so there's no actual stopping. But this is a high beat, so you can see that the second hand really is very smooth going around. You can barely see it tick. You have a date window here down at 4 o'clock, and it looks like it's actually like a brushed metal date wheel, which I think is kind of cool. It shines interestingly in the light, and I kind of like how they did that. And you can see there are gold accents all around. So you have the gold second hand there, and you have the gold indexes encasing the loom on the dial. So now I will talk about the water resistance and also the helium resistance. So this watch has a 600 meter water resistance. Now that is a great amount of water resistance. No one's really going to be ever diving any deeper than that or needing any deeper than that. However, I will say the resistance to the size of the case, I mean, this is a 17 millimeter thick case. 46.9 millimeter in diameter. I think that they could have upped that water resistance a bit. I mean, again, that's not practical, but I think it would have just been nice if they made it like a 3,000 meter water resistance or something. Like there are some Breitlings that are like that. I mean, this is as thick as about the Rolex Deep Sea, so if they could have maybe gotten a little bit closer to that mark, I think that would have been good. So like well over 1,000 meters, I think would have put this watch over the edge, and it would have been fantastic. Again, that's not a practical depth resistance, but it's like having a moon watch. Like, I'm never going to take my watch in space, but it's nice to know that it can and that it's been there. So that's kind of what I would feel about this. It would have been nice to see a higher depth resistance, and I say that about their 200 meter more regular size diver. I think that they should have done a 300 meter with that, just to I guess better compete with the watches around that price point, as really all the luxury divers are 300 meters. So that's just kind of what I'm thinking about this timepiece. But now let's go to a wrist shot. So on the wrist, you can see this is absolutely massive. I have about a 7-inch wrist, and this is, I mean, this goes right up to the edges of my wrist almost. It's extremely thick at 17 millimeters. However, I will say it's a lot more wearable than some of the other watches at this size because it's titanium, so it's a lot lighter, which I think plays a huge part in the wearability of this timepiece. And it's also very comfortable on the back, and I'll show that once I take off the wrist. Take this off my wrist, I'll show you the back, which I think is interesting how they did it. But again, if you have a small wrist or aren't a fan of big watches, this is definitely not the one for you. But if you want a big watch because you're a professional diver, it increases the visibility of this. I think that this is a fantastic watch. Again, the depth resistance is definitely good enough for what any diver is going to be doing, and the quality of this is just fantastic with regards to case finishing and everything else. So now I was talking about the back there while it was on my wrist, and you can see on the back it's actually all high polish, and it's also almost it's curved on the edges. So it really conforms well with your wrist, and there are no like sharp things poking you, and you can't really feel the edge of the case, which I think also plays into its wearability a huge amount, as it doesn't necessarily touch your wrist like a typical 46 millimeter watch will. So that's just kind of one thing I've noticed with the feeling of wearing it. But again, it still is a massive watch. So if you have too small of a wrist, this is definitely not the one for you. But so this watch comes in at a new price of $9,600. Now that's a lot of money. That's more than a Rolex Submariner. The Submariner date comes in at, I believe, $8,500, and then the Hulk would come in at $9,000. I mean, those are going way above MSRP now, so this is actually brand new, is about the same price as what you're going to have to be paying for a new pre-owned ceramic sub. Which I think that this price, I mean, the case finishing and everything is really what puts this in that high level of price. I mean, this definitely has better finishing, I'd say, than a Rolex, and being that it's got the 36 beats per hour movement, it also has a 55-hour power reserve, which I forgot to mention, which is absolutely great. I think that this movement's a bit better than like a Submariner movement. It just has kind of some of the higher end aspects of this, and they're finished fantastically as well, the movement. This doesn't have a clear case back, but they are finished absolutely spectacularly. So I think that the finishing on this watch kind of does, I guess, bring it up to that mark. And I mean, when you compare it to like a new Planet Ocean, which has the same depth resistance as this, that's gonna be a few thousand less than this new, or I think a couple thousand. And this is definitely higher than that. If you're comparing it to like a Planet Ocean, this definitely has a lot higher finishing quality than like an Omega or a Rolex around this price point. And that's really what Grand Seiko is known for. So I'd like to mention that this watch was lent to us by JB Hudson Jewelers in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'll be leaving a link to their website if you would like to inquire about purchasing this watch or see any of the other watches in their collection. Thank you guys for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks.